I started out when I spoke with you folks, discussing mistakes, and sometimes sorry isn't enough. And I would argue that the judge is going to instruct you on something that agrees with me. The court's going to instruct you that this case must not be decided because you're for or against it, because you feel sorry for anyone or are angry with anyone. And I agree with that. No matter which side, we're human beings. I apologize to you, the jury, because we asked you to do something impossible, which is set aside what makes you human, your emotions, but you have to do it. And I stress, and I would agree, and I would echo, look at those facts. Those facts reveal the truth. Those facts reveal the crime. Don't make that decision because you sympathize with her. Don't make that decision because you're angry at her. Make that decision because she did it. That's what you need to make your decision on. I do want to spend a few moments of my time addressing some of the things that the defense said. Yuri, she isn't milk. She isn't groceries. She isn't an unlocked door. She isn't the pet you forgot to walk. She was a 7-month-old baby. And yes, you have to consider that when you consider whether something's reckless. What would a reasonable person who's in charge of a 7-month-old, who is responsible for her life, her survival, what would they do in that situation? The defense wants you to take the simple act of forgetting and focus on that and say, you can't look at the results. You can't look at the other factors. No, members of the jury, you have to. That is what tells you whether a simple mistake, simple negligence, is reckless and wrong. And I would argue to you, members of the jury, that it is here today. She should not have forgotten about that child. She spent all that time with that child. Defense points out, well, I can't believe we showed you the video. Yeah, we showed you the video. Because that Tracey Nix that was at Beef O'Grady's should have been the Tracey Nix that got out of the car. But it wasn't. She was more focused on other stuff she wanted to do when she got home that she completely forgot about her. Not for 15 minutes. Not for a half hour. Not for 45 minutes. Not for an hour. Not for 90 minutes. Not for 120 minutes. For almost 3 hours. Is that something a reasonable caregiver would do? Or is that something that's gross and flagrant and wanton and reckless? The act of leaving the child in the car, I don't think anyone would argue. If she, again, like I said, if she intended to leave that kid in that car and Yuri was trapped in there, she would be charged with a very different crime. We're talking about, it can be confusing, we're talking about negligence. She doesn't have to have the intent to hurt Yuri, but her actions did anyway. That's what we have to look at. It's a difficult case, members. It's a difficult crime. It's a difficult law. It is. But the facts are there. And once again, I need to remind you, she is not stepping on someone's foot. She is not leaving your eggs in the car overnight. She is a child. Defense counsel keyed in on a word, and there is a word in the culpable negligence instruction, conscious, and that throws people off. Conscious as opposed to unconscious. That's what that is. She was conscious the entire time. She should have known. She should not have forgotten. She had no reason to forget other than there were things more important, like playing the piano, taking care of the dog, feeding the pigs, finding her husband, those types of things. And defense counsel wants to talk about distractions. Well, from what we saw at Beef O'Grady's, she deals well with distractions. There were a lot of distractions around her. Everyone came up to see that interview. But she didn't forget Yuri then. She didn't forget that. She took care of her. She did everything she was supposed to do. Unfortunately, Beef O'Grady's Tracey Nix stayed there. What came home was the one who committed criminal negligence. At the end of the day, members of the jury, I think you have to look at all the facts and circumstances. Not just the forgetting, but all of the surrounding circumstances. And you have to look at that and say, what would a reasonable person in that situation do? What would a reasonable person who is responsible for the care and safety of a 7-month-old infant do? And I would argue to you, it would be, remember, don't forget, don't leave, be focused on her, make sure she's okay, she's your little granddaughter, care for her, protect her, get her out of the car. And a failure to do that, members of the jury, that's a mistake, that's criminal. That's a mistake, that's culpable. That's a mistake, that's the crime of aggravated manslaughter. That's the mistake that she needs to be held accountable for under the law. And you need to go back in that jury room and convict her. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to close your screen down?
Yes, sir.
Please.